Man, that vacation wasn't worth it. If I wasn't being chased by Inquisitors, I was avoiding 40k's version of a British museum curator. At least it's nice to be back home and... Oh. Right. I wasn't able to hit the close sign on the bar before truck cunt hit me. Well... Happy New Year! Okay, so it's 2026, and Warhammer 40k's newest events will be bringing us to the realms of Ultramar and the Maelstrom sector, and the video game Dawn of War 4 is bringing us back to Cronus, which has led many people to ask a very good question. Where are these worlds or star systems, and why are they important? Well, fear not, my friends, your resident 40k innkeeper has got you covered. Though, let's go over some rules here quick for this list so veterans don't feel left out, confused, or slighted. First, this list will only contain planets and star systems that are important to modern 40k plot points, or were a part of past events or games. Second, if it's a sub-faction's world, it will most likely be included on a list dedicated to that faction specifically, unless it has a recent event associated with it. For example, Mordian recently had a huge plot thing happen in its system, while the planet of Talern hasn't, meaning that Talern will be covered in a different video, while Mordian is covered here. Third, this is to help newcomers get their bearings on what locations are important to give them a jumping on point. This is not going to be an extensive look into the histories of these locations. This video is inspired in part by Star Wars Explains video Essential Guide to Planets in Star Wars. If you can, go watch that video after this one. It's really fun and informative. I am going to try to show the locations of these worlds on the 40k galactic map, but some locations, like those in the video games, have never been put on the 40k galactic map. So when that happens, I'll put vague directions where I can. But let's get into the important locations in Warhammer 40k. To start us off, let's start in humanity's home system, the Sol system, with the two major planets that dominate the sector, Terra and Mars. Terra is humanity's homeworld and the current seat of power for the Imperium of Man. The planet's oceans and forests were burned away in nuclear wars during the Age of Strife, leaving it a wasteland until the Emperor of Mankind conquered the planet and had it rebuilt into a hive world. Currently, the planet has a population numbering in the quadrillions, and it is home to the Imperial Palace, the Astronomicon, the Emperor's Golden Throne, the High Lords of Terra, the Officio Assassinorum, and other official military and governmental bodies. Although Terra is heavily fortified, events such as the Horus Heresy, the Age of Apostasy, and even the 13th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Despoiler have left major parts of the Hive Cities damaged and many levels of the Hive Cities uninhabitable. Still, it is seen as a holy world for pilgrims to flock to. Mars was the first planet that humanity colonized during the Dark Age of technology, and became the industrial powerhouse of the Sol system. The planet is currently ruled by the Adeptus Mechanicus, a religious group who venerates the machine god, the Omnissiah. Mars was developed into a factory world, so much of it is covered in factories. The red you see from orbit isn't the red sands of its deserts, but the red rust of millions of buildings and factories. Mars, however, is not a part of the Imperial state, but is simply allied to it, leading the Imperium's relationship with Mars to be complicated. The Ring of Steel around Mars holds the Battle Fleet Solar, the system's defense fleet. Mars also saw heavy conflict throughout the Horus Heresy, the Scouring, and the Nova Terra Interregnum, though its most recent actions were to supply the new Primaris Space Marines to the Imperium's war effort, and the war material to support Roboute Guilliman's Indomitus Crusade. Walking away from the Sol system, we come to the world of Cadia. Cadia was a fortress world that was the first line of defense against the forces of chaos that poured out of the Eye of Terror. It was found 38 Terran years before the Horus Heresy by the Wordbearers Legion, who cleansed the original daemon-worshipping population to keep what they had learned there a secret. After the Horus Heresy and the first of Abaddon's Black Crusades, it was found by the Imperium and was officially colonized, turning it into a fortress world. Cadia stood for 10,000 years until the 13th Black Crusade saw its destruction with the crashing of the Blackstone Fortress, Will of Eternity, onto the surface. All that's left of Cadia now is several large continent-sized chunks that remain haunted by warp entities and other horrors. Those born of Cadian blood take pilgrimages to the shards, as you aren't a true Cadian until you stand on Cadian soil. The Eye of Terror is a massive warp tear in reality that was made during the fall of the Eldar Empire 48 years before the rise of the Imperium of Man. The Eye is a gateway into the realm of the warp and is host to thousands of demonic worlds, all claiming allegiance either to one of the 4 Chaos Gods or to Chaos Undivided. After the Horus Heresy, the surviving traitor legions hid within the Eye of Terror and laid claim to many of the demonic worlds within it. Due to the chaotic nature of the warp, time and reality have no meaning here, which means that not only can veterans of the Horus Heresy still be running around and not age a day, but that planets within the Eye can be anything from blood oceans to living humanoid beings floating through the warp. After the fall of Cadia, the Eye of Terror split the galaxy in half, creating the warp tear called the Great Rift, and splitting the galaxy into what we know now as Imperial Sanctus and Imperial Nihilus. The Nachmund Gauntlet is a series of worlds that sit on a stable warp route through the Great Rift, connecting Imperial Nihilus and Imperial Sanctus. The planets within are constantly assaulted by alien and chaos raids. The 2 major worlds defending the entrances to either side are Vigilus and Fort Cybaltus. Vigilus is a fortress world that is currently being held by the Imperium, while Fort Cybaltus is an arsenal world that supplies the defenses of the Nachmund Gauntlet. Currently, the forces of Chaos, led by Harkin Worldclaimer, have taken the world Sanguiterra within the Gauntlet, and are preparing to invade Fort Cybaltus, while Vigilus is sending reinforcements into the Gauntlet itself to clear out traitor forces. Armageddon is home to the Armageddon Steel Legion and has been the center of 4 great wars, although its original name was Olinor, and during the Great Crusade and War of the Beast, it was the center of the largest orc empires ever seen by the Imperium. After the War of the Beast, the Mechanicus used the orc technology on the planet to teleport it to a different star system, in order to protect the world from Imperial censors, and renamed it to Armageddon to protect the planet's identity. Armageddon was at first famous for its industrial might, but later came under invasion from the forces of Chaos and the orc Wa of Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka, with these events being called the Wars of Armageddon. The planet is covered with polluted waters, warp-scorched deserts, orc-infested jungles, and hive cities. Fenris is the home and recruiting world of the Space Wolves chapter. Due to the planet's location in its solar system, the surface is covered in frozen continents. However, during the summer months, the planet becomes covered in volcanic activity, melting away the ice and snow for magma and rocks. The planet's population used to live in highly advanced underground cities, but those locations became uninhabitable and are said to be haunted. The population of Fenris is made up of tribes of humans who are kept to a pre-industrial technological level by the Space Wolves chapter, so as to have a better recruiting pool of warriors. Fenris saw a few different conflicts, like the Months of Shame, which brought the Space Wolves and Inquisition into conflict, and the Siege of Fenris, which saw the Space Wolves nearly destroyed by their rival chapter, the Dark Angels, due to a chaos scheme that was thwarted by the chapter forming an alliance. Fenris' location in the galaxy gives the Space Wolves an advantage when reinforcing locations like Armageddon and even the Nachmund Gauntlet. Necromunda is an infamous hive world within the Imperium known for its hive gangs and industrial output. The world is a wasteland with polluted seas and deserts, with the population of Necromunda either living within the hive cities or in tribes of raiders within the wastes. The hive cities are home to notorious gangs that fight for power and status to become the planetary rulers of Necromunda, but many of these cities were destroyed by horrific civil wars or taken over by gene-stealer cults in the case of Hive Secundus. The planet is currently under the rule of House Aranthus, who led a coup d'etat against the planet's former rulers, House Helmar. Necromunda is also a tabletop game that you can play with your friends to simulate gang warfare in modern Warhammer 40k. The Maelstrom sector is another sector in space that is home to a warp tear. Though not as large as the Eye of Terror, it is still dangerous enough for the Imperium to order several Space Marine chapters to defend the area. This was the area where the infamous Badab War broke out, which was a civil war led by the infamous Space Marine chapter master, Luft Huron and his Maelstrom warders. The war ended in the Maelstrom warders' defeat, but Huron and his chapter, the Astral Claws, escaped into the Maelstrom. Over the course of M41, Huron built up a Corsair fleet to rival the powers of even the Space Marine legions during the Great Crusade. The Maelstrom zone is now infamous for pirate, chaos, and alien raids that hinder Imperial defenses even into modern 40k. As of this video's upload, the next event seeing Huron and his Red Corsairs return hasn't happened yet. The Nephilim sector is the home of the current war zone called the Pariah Nexus, a sector of space cut off by the Necron's Blackstone pylon network. The sectors trapped within the Nexus are covered in a mysterious energy field that suppresses the warp, making psychic powers and even warp travel extremely difficult or impossible to use. It is also the site of the Necron civil war between the Silent King and Imhotep the Stormlord, which the forces of the Imperium and Chaos got stuck in the middle of. Macragge is the homeworld of the Primarch Robu Gulliman and his chapter of the Ultramarines. It is the central world of the realms of Ultramar, which holds dominion over 500 worlds within the Ultima Segmentum. Macragge is a planet dominated by mountains, beautiful oceans, and the lowlands where the majority of the population live. Its cities were designed with inspiration from ancient Roman and Greek styles, though it too has seen harsh conflicts, such as the Horus Heresy, the First Tyrannic War, invasions from the forces of Chaos during the 13th Black Crusade, and even an attack by the Death Guard Traitor Legion during the Plague Wars. These invasions were repelled, and Macragge is still seen as a shining beacon for the Imperium in the eastern side of the galaxy. Tau is the homeworld and center of the Tau Empire. Its ecosystem is a hot and arid world covered in vast savannas and mountain ranges. The Tau species has made sure to preserve the planet's natural beauty while advancing their technological development. The planet is famous not only for it being the center of the Empire, but also for its schools that train battlesuit pilots. Every colony that the Tau set up on a new world is based on the cities of Tau. Heading into Imperial Nihilist side of the galaxy, we start with the hive world of Mordian. Mordian is a tidally locked planet, meaning that the planet rotates at the same pace as the system's star, leaving one half covered in sunlight and the other half covered in perpetual darkness. The people of Mordian live in massive pyramid-shaped hive cities on the dark side of the planet, and their government keeps a tight control on rations and resources, to the point of starving the population. The world is famous for its Mordian Iron Guard regiments, who are trained to obey orders to the letter, even if their commanding officer dies. The world became the center of conflict during the Second Relief of Mordian, where the Thousand Sons Traitor Legion was able to shatter the webway network above Mordian, bringing the Dark Eldar city of Shadum into real space and bringing more disorder to the war zone. Baal is the homeworld of Primarch Sanguinius and is the recruiting world for the Blood Angel Space Marine chapter. Baal and its moons, Baal Primus and Secundus, used to be Paradise Resort worlds. However, when the Age of Strife happened, all three of them became irradiated wastelands due to nuclear weapons being used in their civil wars. The surviving humans of Baal would be forced to live in special radiation suits and compete for dwindling resources against mutants and other monsters native to Baal. The planet saw further devastation due to the Third Tyrannic War, but thanks to Rabute Gilliman and his Indominus Crusade, the Blood Angels were given terraforming technology to begin work on fixing Baal and its moons for its human populations to live on. Now that we have covered important locations on the map, let's go over locations that aren't on the map, or encompass large swaths of territory, starting with the Fourth Tyrannic War. The Fourth Tyrannic War is set within the galactic west of Segmentum Pacificus. The war centers around what we call anchor worlds, that the Imperium has improved the defenses of to halt or slow down the Tyranids of High Fleet's Leviathan, Nautilus, Prometheor, and Grendalis. The events of Space Marine 2's main campaign and PvE story mode are set within the Anchor Worlds. The Dark City of Comarog was the largest port city of the Eldar Empire within the Webway. However, after the fall of the Eldar Empire, it became the center of power for the Eldar who became the Drukhari. The Dark City is ruled by the different Capitalite houses, witch cults, and homunculi covens, who all fight for power within the city. Comarog is a nightmare city filled with the screams of tortured slaves of all species and the cruel laughter of the Drukhari who kidnap and torture those slaves to sustain themselves. It is also home to Kane's Gate, a gateway that leads directly into the warp, that remains closed with the aids of millions of psychic blanks. Tyran was a backwater ocean world of the Imperium. The planet's research station was manned by a PDF and a couple hundred researchers who studied the aquatic life of the planet. Tyran was the first world officially recorded as being destroyed by the Tyranids during the First Tyrannic War, with all life on the planet from the largest kraken to the tiniest microbe being devoured by Hive Fleet behemoth. Even the planet's oceans and mountains were devoured to fuel the Hive Fleet's invasion. The Tyranids are named after this doomed planet. Subsector Aurelia is the home sector of the Bloodraven Space Marine chapter and is home to the worlds of Mordian, Tartarus, Typhon Primaris, Aurelia, and Cyrene. The system is infamous for not only a high population of Psykers, but also for several campaigns that took place in the sector called the Aurelian Crusades, which drove the Bloodravens to the brink of extinction from alien invasions, chaos invasions, and 2 exterminatus missions that turned the worlds of Cyrene and Typhon Primaris into dead husks within the sector. The Bloodravens now recruit only from the Hive world of Mordian and the desert world of Tartarus, with Aurelia being monitored for signs of demonic activity by the Inquisition and Bloodravens. You can experience the Aurelian sector for yourself by playing Dawn of War 2 and its expansions. Tartarus was an imperial world that was secretly a prison for a demonic artifact called the Maledictum. Due to a chaos plot, the world was invaded by an orc Wa to distract imperial forces while the Alpha Legion searched for the fabled artifact. The Bloodravens and Craftworld BL-10 became embroiled in the conflict, leading to the daemon of the Maledictum being freed. The world of Tartarus was swallowed up by a warp storm shortly after, and completely destroyed. You can experience the events of Tartarus for yourself by playing the original Dawn of War. Cronus was a backwater world within the Ultima Segmentum that the Imperium abandoned shortly after the events of the Horus Heresy and the Great Scouring. It was later taken over by the growing Tau Empire and became a source of conflict when the Necron tomb complexes came back online. This led to a massive war on the planet that brought the Necrons, Eldar, Tau, Orcs, Chaos Space Marines, and the Imperium all into conflict. Though the Bloodraven Space Marine chapter would be victorious over Cronus, it would be a grim victory as the Bloodravens were forced to wipe out the Imperial Guard located in the province of Victory Bay. Since then, Cronus would come back to haunt the Bloodravens, with the Necrons and Orcs rising up on the planet again. Though this time, the Bloodravens were supported by the Dark Angels to secure the planet once more for the Imperium. You can experience the events of Cronus by playing Dawn of War Dark Crusade and Dawn of War 4 when it comes out later in 2026. And those are the current major locations within modern 40k. I know veterans were probably hoping for worlds like Krieg, Octarius, and Vrax to show up, but I want to dedicate individual time to those planets or locations. Though, I ain't covering Vrax, because that's beating a dead horse with several other dead animals. Arbitrator Ian and Adeptus Ridiculous did amazing videos on Vrax, so check them out if you're interested. This video is meant to be a starting point for newcomers and those returning to Warhammer to find locations to get their feet wet. Personally, I would start with the 4th Tyrannic War or Warzone Nachmund for newcomers to start out in. Space Marine 2 is a good step after reading the 4th Tyrannic War, while Nachmund is a great place for tabletop gamers to have some fun games set within it. Though, that's just my opinion, and you should decide for yourself or with your friends where you would all like to explore together. There will be more videos like this covering more locations that are either not as important overall, or are more important in a different era. It's why I didn't cover Space Marine recruiting worlds. I am saving those for the Horus Heresy locations video. However, if you want to say on what we could cover next, subscribe to the Patreon. You not only get to see exclusive modeling unit breakdowns for Warhammer and Battletech, but you also get to vote on what videos I cover next. The February poll is already up as of this video's release on YouTube, or came up the same day it was uploaded to Patreon. So not only would you get a say on what we want to learn, but you'd also be supporting me and helping me make more videos like this for you. When we come back, however, we will be going into Dawn of War, as the release of Dawn of War 4 approaches, so the next 2 videos will be Need to Know Bloodravens, and a retrospective on the original Dawn of War, and a quick look into its expansions. So until then, I'll see you all in the next video.